Hey guys, bringing you a Zenith Boar brush that's got this really ergonomic handle. I just got it in, bought it used, and I've had this guy on my to get list for quite some time. So I'm really looking forward to using it, putting some uses on it. I've been very happy with my other Zenith brushes, and so I'm sure this is going to go the same way. And that handle looks terrific. We're going to be using the Karve Christopher Bradley today. And this is the C Open Comb. And we're using it with the Treet Platinum current blade that you guys voted, kind of was next in line to look at. It has done not that great with the Game Changer 68 Open Comb for me, but I think it did okay with the other razor that I used. There are a couple of razors that this thing does amazing in, so it does seem to be a hit or miss blade for me. It has 10 uses on it. And the soap we're going to be using today is from Stirling. It's a new one called Shadow Orchid, and I'm really looking forward to that one. So these are the samples that you get from Stirling, and as you can see, it is huge, much larger than your typical samples. And in fact, you will get, generally people get about a month of shaves from these. A little bit less than a quarter teaspoon is what I find is needed for a whole shave, and in fact, many soaps use that same kind of quantity. So when in doubt, that's where I start, is a quarter teaspoon. Stirling can use a little bit less with that because it's so economical. Boy, you can tell this one hasn't been in the shop too long. It's softer than many of the other Stirling soaps out there. Hasn't had a chance to maybe cure and harden up quite as much. Just spreading it around kind of in a thin layer in the bowl. Not letting any big chunks just sit there, press them down. There we go. It's got a bunch of notes to it. Obviously, Orchid is part of it, but we'll look at those a little bit later. And here's the blade. Sometimes I think it's good to show you because I know with several different blade models, they have changed from printing, like this one has, to etching. Like with laser etching, it's probably more economical than printing, maybe in the long run or whatever, but definitely seen some blades switch to that style. People post online, are these fake blades, and that sort of thing. That also tells you if the Treet Platinum is now being etched, that tells you that my blade is a little bit older stock than at least current. All right, so there we go. Pretty, it's a smooth shaver. It's a C open comb, but because it's an open comb, it kind of behaves like the D solid bar. And so it is, to me, it's right in a really good place. Still quite smooth, but a great cutter. And I'm going to get my face wet. Now, before we jump into building the lather, I wanted to give you guys a little product review. I've had this case for a year or two now. It has a snap. It does have a lining inside to protect the razor from the back part of the snap, and that is important. It's fake leather. You can see how even with minimal use, it is starting to crack and stuff at the bendy points. I don't really enjoy this with a DE razor, and that's what it's made for, I think, because even though everything looks nice like that, what always happens during shipping is it can move over because it's kind of a V shape, this pocket. Now, if you are a leather worker or can sew a little bit and you want to, stitch on these two sides to rein it in a little bit, then I think this can be a very good case. But I just wanted to show that to you because it is out there on different, on eBay. And is it Parker brand? Yes, it is. It's Parker brand. Is that what that says? Yeah. And so I don't really rate this one too high because unless you have an inexpensive razor, because it does let that end of the head hang out on either side pretty easily. Now, this is the Artist Club razor I used in the last shave. And for other similar shaped razors, it's a perfect fit. And it protects it very nicely. So at least there's that. Just a quick review there. All right, let's start mixing this up. So the boar has had a few minutes to soak and absorb water. Boars do that. They're different. That's why they're so stiff before you soak them. And then they get really nice afterwards. Badgers don't absorb water, and of course synthetics don't. Now this is not holding too much water because he's pretty narrow. Parts of him are opening up and splaying a little bit, but since he's young, I'm going to guess 5 uses or so. Could be as much as 10, but I think more like 5. The tips were split, a few of them just a little bit. I'm feeling quite a bit of backbone, much more than my other Zenith brushes. This is the B23. Got this, and I'm feeling the handle right now is terrific. Feels great. Easy to maneuver around. I feel like I have good leverage. I did do one sample lather with this, just a quick, just to kind of see, clean the knot a little bit. This is so stiff that it's quite noisy. So everything's all dry and this kind of texture, so that means it's time to add some water. I think the water is pretty soft here. I don't think it's hard. Just 1 teaspoon to start with. Guess I should be prepared for this brush to kill the lather because young boars sometimes do that. So sometimes it's good to whip up a few extra passes when you have a young boar. If you're face lathering, sometimes you have to go back to the puck before each pass, and that's typical for a boar, some boars under 15 uses or so. And I'm really feeling the stiffness of this knot. I'm looking forward to maturing it. So we are getting wetter. The lather's getting more voluminous. 3 teaspoons now. And there's our first bristle. Not a big deal. because when they're at the factory, I don't really want to pay somebody to sit there and comb through the knots and get all those bristles out. I don't mind doing what I just did, throwing one away. So until the brush reaches about 50 uses, I don't really mind bristle loss like this. Lather is it's getting more volume and looking better. So over time, a couple things will happen with a boar, and you've heard me say this many times if you're a frequent watcher of my channel. The ends, the tips will split, and that will make them softer and softer. With some brushes, that can take a couple of years. With Zeniths, I've noticed they may take them a while to split, but the brush is comfortable long before that. Maybe 5, 10 uses it takes just to be comfortable and enjoyable. And then from that point on, as you wait for the tips to split more and more, then it just gets softer and softer. So tip splitting, number 1. And number 2, the knot will open up. Some open up more than others, like Simogs are famous for splaying open and getting kind of big. I don't think Zeniths and Omegas are as known for that. Now this brush, I wonder if it's going to be a little stiff, and so I'm going to leave this lather a little more firm, a little drier than I usually might. And now water on my FaceTime. Do I have a clean finger to pause you? All right. So here's that brush rest on the lather bowl I used. It's a 3D printed one. I haven't really found a brush that this style of rest doesn't work with. The Pereira bowl from Pereira bowl, as well as the fine lather bowl, have similar things, but what they are is it's like a pipe cut in half, and they stick out like that, which is a great idea. However, I have found that because this allows for different contour handles, I have not found a brush that doesn't sit in this one nicely, where I have found several brushes that don't quite sit right with the flat ones. So yeah, see, we're not getting very much lather here, and it's very stiff. This is very different than my other Zenith brushes. So I'm curious to see how this guy will behave over time. Let us get more lather. Love the handle. It's not prickly, it's not scratchy, but it's very stiff. Lots of backbone. I'm glad I stopped adding water. Might have to go back to the puck there and add some more. Next time I use this brush, I'll be sure not to use a sample, so that if I need to thicken things up, I can always just go right back to the tub for a few seconds. This is stiff. Now, my friend Buzz online, what's up, man? He got a hold of one of these brushes, and he also reported it's got good backbone, strong backbone, I believe. So I can echo that. I am hoping that it does reduce over time. I knew the handle was 99% going to be tremendously ergonomic. I'm very happy with that. But I hope this knot opens up. I'm sure it will. He's probably got more uses on his, so Buzz, maybe you can jump in and comment and tell me how many uses you've got on yours, and how the backbone has changed over time, if it has, in the splay. Okay, so here we go. Treet Platinum in a Karve. Now, the Karve is a good razor when you want one that holds the blade really close to the edge. I find that to be smooth and consistent. I enjoy that trait about razors. So far it's doing very well. It's a good match. I have a little bit of blade feel. So this head works a lot better than the Game Changer 68 open comb, at least for me. I'll try to pause you during some of the rinses because my faucet here is so noisy. And there we go. All right, second pass. I made sure, since the brush is kind of making it act more like a wet lather, I made sure to get the excess drops and off my face and out of my goatee. Since this is the first, after the first pass, we don't need to scrub very much, especially with this being such a stiff brush. Well, I have got a very hydrated lather today. Just dripping all over the place. Had a nice slick shave as the first pass. The razor glide was excellent. Now, while this conditions my beard, although it's not really necessary since it's the second pass and much of the beard's already gone, the notes that I have that Stirling put for the Shadow Orchid scent, it's right now the scent strength is kind of on the low side, 3 or 4 out of 10, and so not a lot of these a lot of these notes just aren't really, my guess, going to be discernible. Quite a few here. They say it's a deep, dark scent. I'd agree with that. Chocolate, truffles, patchouli. Maybe a hint of chocolate, but I don't think so. At least to my nose. Maybe a little bit of the patchouli. And then followed by Orchid. That's pretty dominant. And to me, it's a good kind of floral. Vanilla, incense, amber, and pepper. Don't really smell the vanilla, which is good. I'm not a big vanilla fan. And the other notes might be there. They're just acting kind of as a supporting cast. And then it finishes with floral, fruity, and sandalwood notes. Mainly just kind of orchid. I'm sure the other pieces are smoothing it out, like I said, and just helping it to be a mature, multi-level fragrance. But I'm liking it so far. Midnight Dreary and maybe Cape Verde from Katie's Bubbles and Mickey Lee, respectively, or at least one, maybe both of those are soaps that have orchid as a floral scent, and I really like both of those. Maybe because orchid is a floral that's kind of on the smooth side. It's not as powdery and kind of feminine as, you know, rose and some of those other florals. All right, so the Treet Platinum works really well in the Karve. At least for me. I'm going to be putting out some videos with the requested blades. But always remember that blades are the most subjective thing about this hobby. And so my experience can easily vary from yours. All right, you ready for the third pass? And yeah, we did make enough soap, lather. But not a lot of margin. Because of the really stiff, kind of young nature of this boar, I can't really comment as to how many passes I really would have ended up with. It's, you know, hard to say. This is a wet lather. So this is probably a little too wet. You know, not really quite in that perfect zone where I like to have it, but it's still very slick, and so it's going to protect you. Give you a good shave. It just may not have a creamy feel, and it may kind of flop all over the place. And there are some guys who actually prefer their lathers to be this kind of consistency where it is flying all over the bathroom. All right. Cross grain again, and I tell you what, even after the first pass, my stubble felt like it had been nicely taken care of. I did not feel very much at all as I'm doing the rinses, and right now smooth sailing. I'm not even really hearing much of the stubble being cut. And right here I'm going to switch directions on the third pass. In that truffle spot right there. And there we go. Very comfortable, no nicks, no irritation, anything like that. And I'm very happy with the closeness on this one. It's really funny how different razors, they just have different exposure with the top cap and the safety bar, and the blade can be out or in. They have different angles where the blade, you know, can be pointing, and so that can just totally radically affect how a blade does in a particular razor. The Game Changer 68 open comb holds the blade pretty firmly, similar to the Karve. Karve holds it a little better, but the geometry is just clearly different because this is a much better shave, more comfortable and more close cutting. Really nice close cut today with, I don't think I saw length in any tips in the hairs, and so that's exemplary for me, especially because I don't go against the grain. It generates too much irritation and cuts for me. So today I wanted to use up some, speaking of Mickey Lee, this is Pantie Dropper from them. I believe it's their scent based on Dracar Noir, and this is a milk, obviously, instead of a normal alcohol based. And there's, you know, doesn't have the alcohol. I have pretty oily skin, and so I don't mind alcohol, but just figure I'd use this up. Good stuff. And the shadow Orchid doesn't seem like it's going to interfere with anything because it's such an easygoing, smooth scent, pretty weak after the shave, so I don't mind that. All right, so we didn't quite go with 4 teaspoons today, 3.5. A little bit less than a quarter teaspoon of soap. And this is a stiff Boar brush right now. The loft can sometimes help that to be stiff, and it does seem shorter than my other Zeniths. So I'm really curious how this guy is going to work out in the future. I don't know if they offer this handle with a longer loft. That might be an option if this guy matures and is still a little bit on the stiff side. And so here's what this guy looks like after a good towel stropping. And this is with me, you know, stretching out the tips a little bit to help with dryness, to help with drying and things like that. So we are, after my sample lather, I didn't have nearly this many outliers, and so that is something that's going to increase over time. So do I plan on buying a tub of the Shadow Orchid? I think if you're a big fan of Cape Verde, Midnight, Dreary, two soaps that I mentioned before, then this one is worth getting a sample on your next Stirling order. But it's kind of on the weak side. I did enjoy it a little bit as I was using it. This one was a little bit wet, and so the scent could improve just a little bit in terms of strength if I don't take it quite as wet. It'll be a little bit more concentrated. But since I have both the other two soaps available, I think I will probably not buy a tub of Shadow Orchid. I really like it though. I like the idea, the concept of it. If it were a little bit stronger, then I would definitely make note of it, and I might prefer it over the Midnight Dreary because it's tallow, and I think I like the lather just a little bit better. But Dreary has a stronger scent, so we'll keep rolling with that one. I'm glad to bring this one to you. I'm glad that Stirling has brought this into the fold. Now, this is a sample, and it's possible that the tub of soap, and I have found this to be the case, has more strength to it. But this is still a pretty low strength entry. So there's my report for that. Excellent work with the Chris Bradley razor and the Treet Platinum blade. They worked really well together. A nice smooth shave. I did feel the blade a little bit, but this is a medium aggression razor. Man, that brush is scrubby and stiff, so looking forward to watching it change a little bit, hopefully quite a bit over time. But on the other hand, it could be a good thing that it's so stiff right now, because as Boar brushes relax and open up, they change radically, and so maybe starting stiff could end up to be a happier place instead of being floppy later on. So there's potential there. But I think we're good. Smelling good, enjoying this. I think the panty dropper was a nice transition from the Orchid. I think they match pretty well. Orchid is so soft though, I mean anything is going to be able to go after it pretty much. But I think in the scent family department, I think they're close enough to where it wasn't a radical change for my nose to switch from one to the other. All right guys, well there we go. You guys take care. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and I hope there's been something in this video to help you out. Good night.